I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the Will Gather podcast. As the longevity revolution takes place and our choices and lifestyles are moving us in a direction that more of us are also living longer and we are stepping into solo aging, we need to ask ourselves the question, do I have a support network of friends, neighbors, or community that can help me as I age? What do I need to put in place? My guest today is Joy Loverde. She is the author of 2 books, one which focuses more on family caregivers, the author of The Complete Eldercare Planner. Joy is the author of Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? Plan now to safeguard your health and happiness in old age. Everything we need to know about how to make your money last, take control of your health, and choosing where to live. She is teaching us how to be curious, how to be informed, be critical thinkers, and be resilient, and stay in the game and be a giver. In addition to Joy being an author, she is also a speaker and has been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, and Psychology Today, among many others. She's been interviewed on The Today Show, Good Morning America, and NPR, and critics hail her work as illuminating, eye-opening, and required reading for everyone over 40. And I will second that. I enjoyed Joy's book. I have seen her speak live. I've been able to give her a big hug, and she is just as wonderful in person. I swear we've met in a former life, and we are kindred spirits, and now she is a dear friend, and I couldn't be happier to share her work with all of you. Here is my interview with Joy Loverde. Hi, Joy. Okay, so let's see, how many months have I waited to finally be able to do this interview? And it's here, and we're together, and I'm so happy about it. Welcome. How are you?
Really, really good to see you, and so happy to talk to you.
I know. I had the pleasure of being able to hear you speak. You came to the Twin Cities, and I just felt right away like this connection to you. We were like kindred spirits. You lit up the room. It was so fun. All of those women were just so excited to learn from you and hear you talk. So that was my first glimpse of who you were. And now I'm like, okay, we're friends. We're hanging out.
It was a great audience. It was highly participatory. Everybody was, this is why I don't videotape my talks, because there's safety in the room.
Yeah.
And everybody could say what they needed to say. Mm-hmm. And they did, didn't they?
They really did. They really did. And we shared some, whether it was fears or concerns or thoughts, and I felt like everyone was very honest in their sharing, which created this vulnerable environment where we then felt safe to share what we were thinking,
And the other thing is none of us are the experts of anybody else, and we were all there as students, learning from each other, talking about this really highly sensitive conversation about who's going to take care of me later on if I need care or whatever. Yeah. And everybody came into the room wondering what was going to happen, and magic happened. Everybody was so incredible. And I've been told that they walked away with their own plan, at least to do one thing differently that will make a difference in their lives.
Yeah. Exactly, which is what we need. It was so good. And so I've read your book. Here it is, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? And I love how you say, don't read this book, work it.
Right.
Which is so true. It's like your reference. I've got it on my desk all the time.
That's right. I'm so glad you brought that up. Don't read it. But it isn't a book that you put on your nightstand and or your bookshelf actually and put it away, because life doesn't happen that way, right? It's just something happens one day out of the blue, and then you're back to the book, looking through the table of contents and saying to yourself, okay, now what do I have to deal with? And how about that worksheet in there, how to manage change?
Mm-hmm.
I use that worksheet all the time.
Yeah, it's so helpful because things happen at different times. We're interacting with different kinds of people, or even our thoughts around our own aging and what happens, and we're able to pick it up, refer to it over and over again, be informed, pull it out when we need that help. What prompted you to write the book?
Well, I wrote another book before this. It is a book called The Complete Eldercare Planner. That came out in the 1980s when no one was thinking about eldercare. They were just talking about childcare.
Right.
And I had known for a long, long time that eldercare, it was an issue for employees who are trying to juggle work and family. So ever since the mid-'80s, I've been on the road talking, kind of like the workshop you went to about the subject of solo aging, only I was talking about family caregiving. And about 10 years ago, people started to come up to me and they said, I am taking care of my parents and my grandparents and people in my family, but who's going to take care of me? Who's going to do this for me?
Right.
And I knew right then that would be my next book.
Yeah.
So now I have the two books and we're full circle. I've covered everything. So we have caring for somebody else while we're trying to figure out what to do with us.
They are perfect complement for each other.
Yeah.
You've got both sides of that. Yeah. And for you, why is it important that, when you ask us that question, and I know that it's because of other people and we ask ourselves, okay, who's going to take care of me? Why do we need to ask ourselves that question? What happens?
Don't we like to be in control of many of our decisions? I don't know one person, if I ever asked that question, and they say, no, let everybody else decide for me. No, it's all about, let me put it this way. There is no planning in a crisis.
No.
There's no control in a crisis. You get what you get. And so I know that people who decide to face their fears about the future, if they're afraid, end up better than those who don't.
I think we avoid wanting to dive into certain topics because of the fear, but yet walking through it, I think, gives us the confidence when we have the information that we can manage it. We're going to be okay to some extent.
It's all about connecting with people now when you're level-headed and you're not fearful and you're not afraid and you're not in the middle of a crisis, so that it's kind of like I want to ask you, Nicole, how did you feel when you walked out of the room after we met at my workshop in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
Did you feel more in control? Did you feel like you could do this?
I did. And I also felt like maybe some of the thoughts that I had or some of the fears were alleviated, and also knowing that I wasn't alone in feeling some of those things, and that there was this community that you could pull from and have that support. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we learned that there are people who are standing ready to help us now, and that it doesn't cost us anything to start getting educated and start talking to the people who've been here and know what they're talking about. It doesn't cost anything.
No, it doesn't. And you highlight that too. I love that you talk about what are some of those low cost, no cost options, because a lot of us are wanting to really conserve the resources that we have because we know, aging is unknown. We don't know what it's going to look like to some extent, or how many resources we might really end up needing. And so that's important to have that option. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about no cost and low-cost resources. People have no idea how much is available for practically nothing. And the thing that other people talk about in other books, it bothers me when they say, okay, just go get a lawyer. Okay, just go get a financial planner. Okay, just hire this person or that person. Well, all those people cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so what I decided to do when I wrote this book and the other one is I said, people don't have money to spend So that's what I did, is I wrote about the resources that I did my homework for everybody else.
We need someone to do that for us. Yeah.
I feel very strongly about the money situation and the place where we all are financially. We have to be realistic. But if you start early enough, then you at least stand a chance of having a lot of resources available to you early on.
Right. Yeah. And finances, I've found when not only in our own family, but in talking with other family caregivers, that's the number one stress and the number one burden for people.
Well, that you know that I gave the top 3 needs to start planning now. I feel like if you don't have any idea where to start, the first one is money. Figure out financially, but not just our money, but people who may land on our doorstep who might say, "Hey, Joy, I need your help." And then the first thing out of my mouth is, "Well, let's talk about how financially stable are you?
Right.
How's that going?" So that we could figure out what you could pay for, what we need to plan for right now.
Yeah.
So when we plan financially, we also have to bring everybody else with us.
Yes. It involves everyone. Okay, so I love how you just brought that up about the top 3 planning needs. So finances is one. What are the other 2?
The other 2 in this order is housing, but it's not just the roof over your head. It is, where are we going to receive services? And that doesn't necessarily mean in-home care. It might mean the person who mows the lawn. So we have a roof over our head, and who does all who do we surround ourselves with? Are services available?
Yeah.
So that's number 2.
Yeah.
And number 3, get those legal documents in order.
Right.
And I know that sounds so dry and boring.
So important though, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about a will necessarily. I'm talking about the power of attorney for finances and health care.
Yeah.
That's so important. Caregiving stops on a dime if you cannot show that you have legal authority to participate in someone else's life. And if we haven't set it up for ourselves as a solo ager, perhaps, then you see where it goes? It just goes down that rabbit hole of you are out of control.
Yeah.
You have no choice in the matter of what happens after that.
And it's so important too for us to have it in place, because then we can also decide who we want involved in supporting and helping us and have that agency in that. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is we have to be dealing with a revolving door of relationships. So keep in mind that we look at our documents. We might have them in place. Look at them every 6 months. So are they still in our lives? Have they been diagnosed with some kind of chronic condition that they can no longer perform any kind of the duties that we may need? Did they move away? Did they die? Every 6 months, look at your documents. And as we even get older, those people, we may outlive those people, but we can identify professionals right now, like fiduciaries in some states. We could figure out and contact the professionals who could act in our behalf. All of this requires a lot of trust. That means we have to gain, we have to see if we trust them. Are they trustworthy now? And then we have to ask them the question, what's your business transition plan? What happens if you don't want to do this anymore? And continue to ask those questions, but we could do it right now.
I like how you say the 6 months to reevaluate that.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard that before, but it's so true, because those relationships change, things happen, and how important that is. Like if you're just on that schedule of looking at that you're able to maintain and stay on top of some of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a little note in my calendar to do that. It pops up every 6 months.
It's a great idea. Yes.
It takes like 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's such a great idea. I know, because we can do that reoccurring meeting or event in our calendar, which is so, so nice. Okay, I'm going to do that because I need to have that reminder. Otherwise, a year goes by and I'm past. We're going to talk all about solo aging today, and some of the things I want to talk about before we kind of dive into that is just looking at when we talk about care, or when you talk about care, I think our brain goes to, okay, physical care, what am I going to need for support? But it's so much bigger than that. What else does that word mean?
Well, true wellness has 4 parts. Physical is first, but then we have our emotional wellness, our spiritual wellness, and that's whatever you call spirituality, or whatever, however we define that.
Yeah.
And then the big one is social. So we have physical, intellectual, spiritual, and social. And the social wellness, we know that people who are surrounded by people all their lives, and that takes work, but that's the whole picture, 4 parts to wellness.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And social is such a big one. It gives us that purpose and connection. And we know that we need that. We know that we need that so much.
You know, I like people to think about what it was like to experience COVID. And when we were in our isolation mode, that gave us a preview of what it could be like if no one can visit you anymore, but you're perfectly well and you can't get out. Well, we might have suffered psychologically or spiritually or socially, but we were physically fine. Well, that's why when we make plans, we can't just, go to the gym and work out those muscles. We have to do all 4 to sustain a quality of life.
Yeah. Yes. And it's so important that we, I think, evaluate that and think through that. Am I touching on all of these different things as I'm aging? Even now, even for myself, I know that each of those is so important. You had done this really cool visual when we met, and it was that stairway that never ends, and it asks us, who am I now?
Oh, yeah. So the slide before that, the visual before that, is what people typically think about aging. It's an arch, right?
Yeah.
So it starts where we're so cute little babies,
Right.
and then it goes up, and then we hit our peak at 40, and then bam, it just starts spiraling down. Well, that's one way. Maybe the medical professionals think about it like that, but that does not have to be how we think about it. So what you're referring to is this stairway or a ladder that just goes into infinity. And each time something happens bad that we don't think we could handle it, all we need to do is ask ourselves, who am I now? Who can I be now? And have that be the foundation for a new way of living through any kind of major change. And I have a worksheet called Managing Change in the book that helps us through this process, including, so after we go through an exercise of who was I before the change?
Right.
And who is all involved with this, and who can I talk to? So that by the end of the thought process, we say, okay, now who am I?
Right.
And we go from there. We're all going to experience trauma, but it doesn't have to break us down.
And seeing who we are at that moment gives us permission to be different than who we were before, make different decisions or have different outlooks, and we change and we evolve. I have a friend that's so good about asking me, like, hi, how are you? We'll have a conversation, and she always asks, like, how are you now?
How are you today? There.
I do, because who I maybe, or how I was feeling yesterday, or how many hours ago, it could be very different, and then it gives me permission to show up in that moment as who I am at that, and I'm not tied or held to who I was however long ago.
The toughest challenge that I'm finding for myself in my 70s is the people who are just dying left and right around me. And my daughter asked me, she said, how do you deal with all that? Your parents are gone, your grandparents, everybody's starting to go, good friends. How are you dealing with that? And this is when managing change becomes very, very important. is dealing with the death of people and slowly being left behind. This is a major change.
That is.
All the time. It's bigger than being resilient. This is bigger than that. It for me, it requires a spiritual life. That's not where everybody else goes, but I'm finding that my spirituality and my spiritual network is really being helpful right now.
Right.
And we'll probably get stronger as we go along.
Yeah. So how do you manage? How do you deal with that, with the loss of people around you? The spirituality is a big component of that.
Yeah. And I cry a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not it's not a cry like it's sorrowful and depressing. I laugh and cry at the same time, especially with people who know the person who just died. And we just laugh and cry. And getting it out is really important. That's one thing. And then I have a spiritual director in my life, no different than people might go to therapy. If you Google spiritual direction, you might find people, experts to talk to, who will speak with you on a different level about spirituality and all these expressions of loss.
Right.
That's really what we're dealing with. But I also have another, weapon in my back pocket, and that's all my old friends. So I have friends who are 90 and 100, and I talk to them all the time. Now, you talk about people who are right smack dab in the middle of my future. They teach me everything, and they calm me down. And a lot of times there's cookies and ice cream involved.
Oh my gosh, the best. And to have someone that understands. I have been experiencing different emotions that I haven't had before. And along the lines of what you were saying, my parents have built a cabin, and I was there with my dad, and I was watching him. He's waited his whole life to build this cabin, and we're all there, the kids, and he's playing the guitar. And that weekend, I couldn't stop crying because I felt like, oh gosh, it's going to hurt so bad. It's going to hurt. I'm going to start crying again. It's going to hurt so bad to not have them around anymore. And I don't want to always go into that sadness, but I just needed to honor it in that moment and obviously enjoy the moments that I have with them. But I started feeling that fear of, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm prepared to feel the hurt of losing people around me, because I know it's coming. I'm in my 40s, I'm getting older, and that's been interesting. I haven't had to really face that before in that way. Yeah.
I'll tell you, Nicole, one of the greatest gifts my daughter, who is 48, gave to me is one night I was visiting her, and she just started crying, deep sobs. So she said exactly what you said, only she was sobbing and talking to me in front of me about what she was going to feel. And I let her cry. I just sat there and just let her feel what she needed to feel. And the thing is, Nicole, I did not say it'll be all right.
Yeah.
I said to her, and you will know how loved you are.
Yeah.
So this is how she dealt with that, because she's an only child. And she and I are like Mutt and Jeff.
Yeah.
And she needed to cry in front of me and grieve already. I felt honored, and I knew I had done a good job as being her mom.
Oh my gosh.
That she could feel so vulnerable with me. And I have no doubt in my mind that she will be the most magnificent old lady in the world. And she has 4 children, and she will pass the baton. And that's my legacy.
It is.
So,
what a beautiful gift.
I so appreciate what you just said. That she sat down with me and just had a moment.
Oh, and I probably need to have those moments with them because I was trying to hide it. I wasn't embarrassed, but I was surprised that I was I just couldn't keep it together. And I just need to have that moment with them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no such thing as keeping it together.
Right.
I think after 10.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's that whole, I can't remember the exact quote, but with the grief, it's like the grief is a sign of the deep love that we have for people. And so I've been trying to go into that place, like, gosh, how lucky am I that I love so deeply and they love me so deeply. And just remembering that. It's big. Oh my gosh, I didn't know I would talk about that today, but I love that we did. I love that
me
we
too.
did.
You validated me too with what my experience was with that. It was one of the best days of my life.
Wow. Yeah.
Just remember the gift.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah. So true. And you'll never forget that. She won't either. You know, she'll hang on to that. So that is what we live for, is those moments. Oh gosh, how do I segue? How do I segue?
Yeah, they'd be like talking about, housing. Like, oh, what?
Right. Oh, I love the realness though. So thank you for being able to do that with me. There's so much with solo aging, if we're going to talk about that, and how our world is changing because we're living so much longer. And you referenced that longevity revolution. How is that changing everything? What does that look like?
Well, these days it's not unusual for people to live 90, 100. Some people are getting up there 115, 120. And this means that we are transitioning as caregivers and elders at the same time, and it's particularly poignant as we get older and then the people who are older than us are remaining in our lives, and that we age together. And so one of the greatest important points of that is now we have to be on the lookout for our well-being at the same time as theirs. Used to not be that way. When I started out, it was the caregivers were in their mid-40s and their parents were in their mid-60s. And then their parents died, 70-ish. And we, cared on. But now, we could be sick alongside the people we care for. So planning is a double whammy. Right. And that's important. And the other thing is the financial piece. So how do we finance 30 more years? From 70 to 100 or beyond. Why are so many people retiring in their 50s and 60s? Are they not understanding of the need to finance a longer life?
So much longer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of significance in making sure that you have good guidance with money, and just money's a big deal. Yeah. What can I say?
Right. And you walk people through that, which I love in your book. So they'll have to see how that can come together. What's different for solo agers than, let's say, someone that, has a partner? I think we can kind of guess, but like breaking it down for us.
I am not a solo ager. I am married, but the solo agers tell me that it's the isolation factor and the need for what I had mentioned earlier, the revolving door of relationships, that becomes quite a challenge. Now, I deal with that a lot in the book. How do we put ourselves in social situations where younger people are coming up the pipeline? And that I know is one of the essential plans to make, because the very old people in my life tell me that is the reason for their success, is they have figured out ways to be surrounded by younger people and constantly looking at their network. So solo aging and the taking responsibility for figuring out the networks and the social network of younger people constantly coming through the door. It includes our dentists, our doctors, our advisors, people who are not our age but far younger, so that we can be with them, right? And not have them go on us, even though that they might. But right,
are the people that are sharing that with you, are they finding that certain things they do or environments are more conducive to those interactions? Are they like, where are they finding success and finding younger community?
I'll give you an example, and you were right smack dab in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Is I'm a member of a women's organization, women only, called the Transition Network, and that is for women 50 and older. And so as I have been through the pipeline of the Transition Network, and I participate fully in many of their social activities, and I have made friends that are friends for life. I could call them at 2 a.m. We're really close. However, there's constantly younger women coming into the Transition Network. That's just one example. Local church groups where you might volunteer, the younger people all the time taking classes, just finding places where people have that natural pipeline. I like to hang around with my grandkids.
Yeah.
They're fabulous. They invite me to everything, and they tell me that, I'm not going anywhere, and they're going to take care of me. But for solo agers who may not have grandchildren, if you have friends who do have grandchildren or nieces and nephews, get to know them, because they'll fall in love with you too. If you're a friend of Aunt Jenny, then you're a friend of mine, and then that's it. We all do this together. Right. And sure enough, I mean, right now I'm taking care of several people in this building that I'm not related to because I just love them.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we have the mindset, I'm going to connect, I want to connect with people of different ages, then we're more intentional. And I think then we see the opportunities. Whereas if we're not in that mindset, we're not paying attention to what's in front of us.
Yeah. I hear you, solo ager who is not social. I hear you. I get it. I know plenty of people who are shy. They don't like to go out. They're just, and God love them. But they do find ways to connect, even if it's on the Zoom meetings. They do something, otherwise they are feeling very isolated. So for those people who don't like to be very social, to at least make an effort to let people know you exist, you're in this world, who you are. You don't have to say much, but just to show up for some of the social events and support groups that are online might be good enough. Otherwise, the sad stories just keep popping up that so-and-so wasn't found until 2 weeks later. And like, wait, no, not okay.
Yeah, to have that person in connection and to do the best you can with how comfortable we are. Yeah.
Exactly.
What are some of the other challenges with that? Is it isolation's a big one? I'm guessing financial, right? If you've just got that one source of income and you don't have that partner supporting or helping figure out care or living situations, what do we do when we're in that situation?
If you think you're heading in that direction, as I said earlier, now is the time to find out if you need to qualify for some public programs. And the good news is there are so many. How many resources are listed in my book?
Yes.
I can't count them.
Yeah.
So many. So just know that if you begin to think that financially you might get into a little bit of trouble later on, just know that there's plenty of assistance right now. I live close to what is a poor part of town in Chicago. But many of those people go to my church because that's where my church is located. And I can't tell you, those people are having a ball. They connect with the Chicago Department on Aging. They get on the bus, they go to the opera, they go to the store, they get coupons thrown at them. They're having a ball. And all they're doing is living on their Social Security. They're living in affordable housing. All of this is possible if you just start out early enough and get your name on those waiting lists.
Yeah.
Boy, and people say, well, I don't live in a big city. What am I supposed to do? Rural communities should hook up with the local churches, religious organizations, and the social events that are happening in that kind of environment, and they're there.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how much fun people are having, and they don't have any money.
Right. There's so much going on. Well, I'm so glad that you did all the work for us by finding all the resources. It makes it so nice and so easy. And there can be, truly benefits, I think. I'm always liking to think of the positive. That's my lens in the world. And what stands out to you as, benefit of solo aging, if we're in it?
Well, so you do have control of every single thing. You don't have to, you just make all your own decisions, but start making decisions. That's all. The benefit is no one's going to stop you from having what you want.
Right.
No one. You're in charge.
Yeah.
Not that people who are connected will have other people, but we have to weigh a lot of different options.
Other thoughts, and rather than just be able to act on it.
Yeah, exactly. You're in charge. Think big.
Yeah. And we can just dream up how we want it to look for us without having to consult, all the people.
That's right. Yeah. It's a very creative lifestyle, if you ask me. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So we are living longer. We know that, when I think about it, when I worked in senior living, I would say 95% of the residents that I cared for were solo. They had outlived a spouse. They had decided not to get married, whatever the case is. And it's becoming more prevalent now as we're having autonomy. People are also deciding to not get married. There's a lot of different things that are happening. What are the numbers? Like, if we're thinking of what does that actually really look like? How alone am I in this or not alone in this?
There's 1 in 3 boomers, and the millennials are the same, or maybe 1 in 4.
Okay.
You are so not alone.
Right.
There are so many people, and consequently, so many social organizations. Here in Chicago, we have Chicago Social, and wherever you live, if you just type in social activities, there are so many ways to connect. You are so not alone.
Yeah.
So many people are living this lifestyle, or get a dog and go to the dog park, and then you're going to have 9 million other friends.
Oh, totally. That's such a great way to meet people. Yeah. You were saying that you've been invited to speak about boomer support and related issues. It sounds like that different companies and corporations are having a pulse on that. How are you seeing that they're focusing on the boomer lifestyle?
So this is the good news. In April, I will be in Evansville, Indiana, and I have been hired by a very large financial group called Baird. I think they might be worldwide. They are so concerned that they have to give the right guidance to people who are aging solo. So they've invited me to come to speak so that the professionals who work at that company will have a better understanding of how they need to speak to solo agers in terms of their financial well-being.
Wow.
And then we're going to have it open up to their clients who will learn that if they're not aging solo now, they need to plan for it later. So that's one example. So big advisory companies, lawyers, financial planners, senior housing. Tonight, I'll be on an airplane going to Maryland, Baltimore, to give 2 keynotes to the prospects of a community called Residence Vantage Point in Baltimore. These people are going to learn about the difference between aging in place and aging in a community lifestyle, and how each one requires certain planning strategies. So the good news, Nicole, is the world is waking up to the needs of solo agers, and they are unique, and they require specific conversations and planning strategies. We have to stop putting people all in the same bucket.
100%.
We've got to start making it very, very specific. This is why I'm so busy, and this is why your podcast is exploding.
Yes.
As people realize we've got to start talking about the different niches of the people who are aging, which is all of us in all kinds of situations.
I love that you brought that up and that there's good news and people are focused on it and that we can't all be lumped into this one general idea of what it looks like. It's so unique. We have so many different circumstances and people and ideas and initiatives. So yeah, I'm so glad. And you get to like bring that to them, which is perfect.
Right. And as a solo ager, when we are talking to the professionals, if they are not speaking to you and your needs, then you just say, excuse me, but I really need you to tell me from this point of view, how will this benefit me as a solo ager? And then they need to kind of, refocus and say, okay, either they're able to tell you something in the moment or they'll say, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But it's our responsibility to say, yeah, that's okay for now, but what about later?
Right.
When I'm aging solo or now when I'm aging solo, I need you to talk to me about that now.
Absolutely. And we know when we look at the numbers, we might not be solo aging at the moment, but the chances of us solo aging in the future are incredibly high. So it has to be on our radar.
Especially if we keep exercising and eating right.
I know. We're going to be living for a real long time.
I'll tell you, sometimes I do get a kick out of, like, I'll be taking a long walk and just really doing a power walk and go, oh boy, this is going to keep me around a long time. Yeah. What am I doing?
Oh my goodness. I know there's so much, even with saunas or cold plunge and optimizing our, biohacking, all the things. It's like, all right, here, let's go. Yeah. Or just prolonging that. And that can be a really good thing sometimes too. Well, I guess we'll see because we will be about to experience that in the future. One of the things I think as solo aging can cause some trepidation is that you said the elephant in the room is that we've got this caregiver shortage. So even if we can maintain all the things, we've navigated our finances, we might need a little support. We might not be able to find that. And I think that can be a little nerve-wracking.
It is, and it's a reality of today. And it was happening before COVID, by the way.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm starting to see, actually, when the book came out, which was right before COVID, we were already in the industry talking about the lack of caregivers. And so one of the things that we can do, and it's not happening fast enough, is to get involved in the organizations that I mentioned in the book, which I cannot remember what they are. There's two of them. And to begin to become advocates of seeing that this is an industry that deserves, those people need to be insured and paid.
Yep.
And so we can get involved as advocates right now and do what we can as an industry to elevate that as a respectful job. In the meantime, we're still going to have to rely on a network of people who can give us referrals. Nicole, a week doesn't go by that somebody doesn't contact me and say, I can't find a caregiver for my mom. I can't find a caregiver where I live. What can I do? And right now, it's way beyond crisis moment.
It's a big one.
People are starting to move in with their parents, or parents are moving in with them, and that isn't what they want, and it's not working out, and it is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it, being Italian, and we all live together. We know how to do it, but it's not right for everybody to have parents move in or you move in with them. It's so disruptive. And from having attended my talk, I said adult children are not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, it can't be the only plan that we have because we, like you said, there are so many different variables to situations like that.
Yeah.
My situation with that is on both the professional side and personal, where working in senior living, we had so many caregivers that would work full-time during the day and then they would leave and go work their second full-time job because of the pay is not sustainable for providing for somebody. And so it was like, oh gosh, they work so hard. And to see that, it's so frustrating because there's got to be a better way. And on the personal side, I would have same. People call all the time and are like, do you know anyone? Or can you help because of my background? And at times I would visit a girlfriend's grandma of hers every week. And I enjoyed that interaction and time spent with her. And, you do what you can with the resources that you have, but you just know that it's bigger. It's got to be addressed. And so I love that idea of supporting organizations and seeing it from a bigger level, moving that initiative forward, because I think that's where it really has to change. Yeah.
To be helpful to solo agers, if they would start to look now at where they live. Remember I said the number 2 is housing with services?
Yeah.
So do you live in an area where there may be a lack of caregivers? Because if you live in a larger city, there's a better chance of you having a bigger network and a bigger pool to pull from.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So where do you live now as a solo ager? Even though you might live in, gorgeous countryside and peaceful and all that, just know that the lack of resources may hurt you in the long run, and to be aware of that. That's all.
It's a really good thing to think about. I didn't really put that together before.
So some people think that home sharing is an idea, but that has a shelf life because people come and go. So you could have somebody, but this is happening in our family right now. My sister-in-law has a college student staying with her, and it's working out fine until what happens when the student leaves. And then my sister-in-law did get sick, and this was this is what happened, and I had to deal with it. So my sister-in-law had the expectation that this college student roommate would pick her up from the hospital. No. So I called this college student, her roommate, and I said, she was crying, sobbing. I can't do this. I'm bombarded with schoolwork. Sobbing. And I told her, I said, you don't have to do a thing. You go to school and don't worry about it. And because my sister-in-law had called her and said, will you pick me up from the hospital? And then I had to deal with my sister-in-law. I said, no, that is not what she signed up for.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, what a mess.
I'm so glad you could be there, but yeah. Oh.
So I just want solo agers to understand, you bring somebody in or you go live with somebody, it's not the answer.
Right.
It might be great in the interim, but not
long term.
It's got a shelf life.
Yeah. Yeah. And we always don't think of that in the moment, but it's when you put it together and you think in the future, okay, yes, I do need to understand that it's not going to be permanent long-term answer. Yeah, you just brought up a good point. If you have people in your life and you need some answers, go talk to somebody 30 years older than you. You'll get some answers. I love that idea. Yes. I've always said too, even when I was younger, I would go and hang out with like the older adults and not people my age. Maybe I was just like wanting all that wisdom really young. I don't know, but it worked.
Yeah.
So part of this in growing older, and I think every day for all of us, is being resilient. How do we exercise that resilience muscle?
You hit it on the head. It doesn't just happen once and then it goes away.
That's true.
Every single time you're disappointed, let's just put it that way. It could be a little thing, like somebody didn't call you or you didn't get the job, something. Resilience is a mindset. So just practice. That's all. It takes practice. We know we are surrounded by people who are so negative. One thing happens and then it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
So practice.
Yeah, we get better with that each time we do it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that left like a lasting impression on me, and I wrote it down at that time, was and I even think I shared this on LinkedIn, to stay in the game takes effort, and it means that we have to be a giver. And gosh, it's so true. I love that word, giver. How do we do this well?
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many people come to me and they say, when I got sick, my friends disappeared. So I said, well, what kind of friend are you? And it's hard to have that conversation, but are you always asking for something without giving? Have you demonstrated what it means to be a giver to someone when they needed you? Or did you abandon them? We have to give even when we don't think we have it in us, because when we do give, we will get energized, even though we don't think so in the moment. And people just naturally gravitate toward you when you're a giver, and they want to give you something, and they'll be there for you. So the quality of who we are as a friend has everything to do with staying in the game and having that social glue that we talked about be the component of what it means to be needed by somebody for something, which has incredible physical and mental advantages.
It does.
You have to be a giver.
You are a giver. You are a wonderful giver. Good example of
So
that.
are you. I think givers find each other, and they live an incredibly rich life, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We do. It's remarkable and a good reminder to continue to do that all through our life.
And like you said, it takes effort.
This has been so meaningful to me that you are giving of your time and sharing your heart with us. I'm just so thankful, and I'm excited. I'm going to come to Chicago and visit you. We're gonna hang
We'll
out.
have so much fun.
Yes. I can't wait.
Look out.
Yeah, do all the things. I just am so thankful. And where can we learn more? I know people can purchase your 2 books and find you on your website and social media. Anything else? I know you've got some free forms or resources available.
Definitely. Go to elderindustry.com. Take a look around. Every time I have a podcast or whatever, an article, I continue to post. There's so much on my website. And also, this is a really fun place to go. Find me on Pinterest.
Oh, love it.
That's where I have so much fun putting ideas on there, things that other people are doing, including your gift idea. Are you on Pinterest, Nicole?
You know, I am, and I need to be better about keeping it updated.
I hear that all the time, but I think you and I might have already hooked up on Pinterest.
Okay.
If not, I will make sure we do.
Please do.
But this is where the fun happens. So find me on Pinterest too, and your gift giving ideas are just phenomenal. So
thank you.
Social media, elderindustry.com, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm there.
Awesome. We'll find you, and I'll share it with everybody here too. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day. And you are an incredibly beautiful person, Nicole, and I am so glad you're in my life.
Thank you. Likewise, I'm so thankful, so happy. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.